A warm welcome to this spotlight on MAXQDA Stats. I will show you how you can use MAXQDA Stats to perform statistical and mixed methods data analysis within MAXQDA. So what is MAXQDA Stats? It is a standalone statistics module that is fully integrated in the data analysis software MAXQDA. So the primary benefit of it is to support your mixed methods analysis. For example, you can analyze your qualitative data quantitatively. You can analyze your qualitative data, usually the codes, alongside with quantitative data, the variables. Or for example, you can form groups based on quantitative data analysis. You can work either with the data of a MAXQDA project, the document variables and the code frequencies, or you can work with external data that is in SPSS or Excel format. So let's have a look at MAXQDA. So if you have a license that is called MAXQDA Analytics Pro, you see that there is a new tab here between the reports and the MAXQDA tab, and it's called Stats. It allows you to start the module, start with all documents or with an external file. But before I demonstrate this, I will introduce this example project I am using here for demonstration. So these are the data, or the results from a survey, and the respondents of this survey had to answer open-ended and closed-ended questions. So the open-ended questions or the answers to these are listed as documents, and each respondent has one text document here. For example, here I can change between the answers from respondent 2 to respondent 3 on several open-ended questions. And if I activate the survey, I see that there are 156 cases, respondents here in this data set. So for example, respondent 2 answered to the question, how affected by financial crisis? Not really much. Well, our cheaper car parking tickets have gone now, etc. And you see that the questions or the answers are already coded. For example, here this has been assigned to the code travel. Or here for respondent 2, the answer is already coded with the code own business struggling. So we don't have answers to these open-ended questions, but in the variables we also have the answers to the closed-ended questions in this example project. For example, we know that respondent 2 is retired, is widowed, and belongs to the 70 to 70-year-old age group. The person lives in a rural area and rated the job security scale with 4, which is the highest value on this scale. So if I start stats now for all the documents, it will take all the 156 rows that are listed here and all the code information that is here and transforms this information to stats, transfers it there, so that we continue working with the data in a statistical environment. So I click on Start with all documents, and you see that 156 cases here are now listed in our data editor, and you see that MAXQDA Stats works with 3 different views. This data editor, a variable list, and an output viewer, so it is kind of similar to typical statistic software. You will recognize respondent 2, which is again listed here in row 1. The person is retired, widowed, and belongs to the 70 to 79-year-old age group. And at the top you will see that there are several menu functions, menu features that offers to transform data, like computing a new variable or recoding it into a new variable. We can perform descriptive statistics, like creating a frequency table, or creating descriptive statistics, like calculating the mean, the median, the quartiles, and creating box plots and other charts like histograms. We can compare groups, so we can create a crosstab, we can perform an analysis of variance, or we can calculate, compute the correlation, the Pearson correlation or the Spearman correlation. And there is an option to create a scale based on a reliability analysis with Cronbach's alpha. I would start with some easy functions. Let's start with the frequency tables, and I will create 3 frequency tables for employment status, marital status, and age group by selecting these variables and clicking OK to start the procedure. MAXQDA Stats will display these result tables here, and you see that I can switch between the result tables by clicking on this drop-down list, or just by clicking on this arrow and moving forward to the next variable or backwards to this previous variable. So for example, here we have the frequency table for the marital status. You see that 91 persons are married, which equals 58.3%. And if we take into account that we don't have the data for 80 persons, this is a valid percentage of 65.9%. There are 5 persons that said that they are living with a partner, 28 are single, and 14 are widowed. So this table is interactive, and this makes it very interesting to work with. So for data exploration and so on. For example, we can click on frequency to sort it by the frequency column, or we can click on percentage, which should lead to the same sorting here. And another one is that we can delete a row. For example, here this row with a very few participants, we can delete it. We can undo this deletion. And we can highlight and mark 2 rows, for example, married and partner, and say, no, we want to include them. We want to merge these values. And I can right click on these selection, select merge values, and MAXQDA will recalculate the frequencies immediately, also the percentages. So now we don't have only 91 persons here, but 96, which is 91 plus the 5 from partner and married combined. We have the option now to export this table just by clicking on this icon, copy to clipboard, for example, and opening a Word document and including it here in our final report. For example, here you see I've already done this before and copied this table, and you also see that we can create these diagrams in MAXQDA Stats just by switching to the chart view. And you see here we have this marital status in a bar chart view, which we can also copy to a clipboard and copy to our report, or copy to a poster, for example, or a presentation. Please note that we not only have the option to export our results here to the clipboard, but we can also export them to this output viewer here just by clicking on this icon, insert chart into output viewer, or insert all charts into the output viewer, for example. So you can see here that the employment status, the marital status, and the age group are now some kind of saved and conserved here in this output viewer, because if I close stats and reopen it, the results will be still there, and even if I share my project with another person, the output viewer won't be deleted until I click on this icon here. So we have not only the option to switch to the chart view, and we can also adjust this chart view. We can say we want to work with the absolute frequencies, so you recognize the 96 here again, and we can change it to percentages here. We can display the missing values here to make it clear that we don't have data for 11.5% of the cases, for example. So besides this frequency data, I want to go back to the data editor and make something important clear here. You see that here we have the quantitative information that is displayed here in the columns. In the background, when starting MAXQDA Stats, MAXQDA also transferred all the code frequencies per each document. So MAXQDA knows how often one of the codes from the code system has been applied to respondent 2, to respondent 3, to respondent 4. And if you look for descriptive statistics on the frequency tab, you will see here that there is also a code tab which we can switch between variables and codes. And for example, we can not only create a frequency table for these quantitative variables, but also for our codes to get some information on our code frequency. For example, we see that the code jobs loss has been used in none of the document 116 times, in 116 cases, and in 40 cases it has been used once. So for 40 cases the code jobs lost has been used. And what we can do now is that we can, for example, compare groups, create a cross tab, and say, I'm interested in how the code usage of jobs lost differs between persons that live in different regions. So we create a cross tab where the rows are formed by the code jobs lost and the columns are formed by the region. And the result looks like this. Again, you see that we have here the 116 persons and the 40 persons fitting to the answer to the question if the jobs lost code has been applied. And they are now split up into two columns, the rural and the urban column here. And what we can do now is that we can not only show the absolute frequencies here, the number of documents, but we can also calculate column percentages to compare the both columns. For example, we see here that jobs lost is a bigger issue in rural areas because nearly 33% of the rural persons are some kind affected by this jobs lost topic, while in urban areas, in the urban region, only 18% are affected or the code has been applied there. So we can combine here code frequencies in the columns or in the rows, and here with the variable which is standardized data. Here we have qualitative information that is transformed into quantitative data, and here we have quantitative data that has been recorded during the survey. Please note that it is very interesting now that we have access to each cell here. For example, here we see there are 26 persons that live in a rural region, a rural area, and where the code jobs lost has been applied. So what about going further and digging deeper? So we can save these group of persons as a document set. So we can right click on this cell and say save as document set, and you see here at the bottom at the status bar of MAXQDA Stats that we have one saved document set right now, and I can also click on it and revisit it. We have 26 documents that apply to this information, the code jobs lost by region, 1 by rural. Okay, so nothing has happened now, but it is already saved here as the document sets. And when I close MAXQDA Stats now, MAXQDA Stats asks me if I want to update my MAXQDA project and create a new document set that contains only these persons, these 26 persons. And if I click on OK, you will see that MAXQDA creates a new set here in the document system. And the set is called like the formula that we have used to create it. And here you see it's the jobs lost by region, and it's the 26 persons, you see here that the 26 persons are now activated, and we can continue working with only these 26 persons that live in a rural region and where the code jobs lost has been applied to. So the main idea is that we can use stats for creating groups based on quantitative data or on a mix of qualitative and quantitative data. I want to now start MAXQDA with an external file, and here I have a file with 120 cases or 121 cases where we have different variable information, and all these variable labels are informing that we have 12 items, and these 12 items are from an environmental awareness study. For example, there was an item that is called citizens can contribute only a little to the energy conservation, or borders of growth have already crossed. So altogether, these items shall, or the idea of these items is to measure the environmental attitude, the environmental awareness of persons. And we can use these items to create a scale. A scale which starts with all the 12 items. Could be also codes, of course, or could include a mix of codes and variables, but here in my example I have only variables. And MAXQDA presents this result, and also this table is interactive. For example, we see that the first one, citizens can contribute only a little to the energy conservation, has a very low corrected item scale correlation, meaning that it doesn't contribute very much to the scale. Does not fit so good than the others do. So we can see, for example, justice between generations has a value of 0.59, which is a very high correlation here, while 0.184 is a very low item scale correlation. And MAXQDA is interactive in this way that we can click on a row and delete it. And now the whole scale is recalculated, and CONBAS alpha has increased slightly to 0.793. Only one case is missing, and whenever you've done this, creating a scale in a statistics software, you know that this might be very time consuming because you need to redo it again and again because you don't have this interactive part. So here we have the option to undo the changes and check what happens if we delete another item. So for example, now we have 0.779. If we delete the borders of growth have already crossed item, which has also a very bad item scale correlation, it will be increased a little bit, but not so high as indicated by alpha without the item here, column 2. So what you can see is that we can use also these interactive ways of handling statistical tables here within MAXQDA Stats, not for only working with qualitative data and quantitative data compared in different options and features, but we can also create a scale within MAXQDA. So my conclusion is that working with MAXQDA Stats here from this Stats menu allows you to change between qualitative and quantitative data analysis by staying within MAXQDA without using another software. Thanks for your time and happy working with MAXQDA Stats.